Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses, and in a week where we saw a lot of talking done off the pitch, Aberdeen finally did their talking on the pitch, ending a barren run of 10 games without a win with a fine 1-0 victory over Hibs in the cinch Premiership. Calum, I'm so glad we're both going to have something positive to talk about.
For once, a happy podcast. Thank God for that. That win's been a very, very long time coming, but since you mentioned the talking off the pitch, what did you make of Mr. Cormac's rant on the radio, perhaps you could describe it as?
Yeah, nice of him to do it after we recorded our previous episode, so we couldn't discuss it. But I decided to listen in full to what he was saying. And at the time, I thought, what are you doing? This is so unprofessional. But it's Dave Cormac, it's his ego, it's what he likes to do, put himself in the limelight. And, maybe there was elements of him taking the pressure on and media spotlight away from Stephen and the players and focusing the attention on himself. And it maybe worked. There was points that he raised about, the media and the work they do, to conspire against Aberdeen. But I still think there was some tough questions asked in there, and Dave maybe did shirk away from some of them by just throwing data at Kenny McIntyre at times. But look, it's just nice that now we can talk about on the pitch events in a positive manner. And I think from what we talked about, Calum, me and you, after the Dundee game, we raised questions, Johnny Hayes, Scott Brown, whether or not there was desire amongst the players. Well, whether or not they chose to listen to our podcast last week, there were certainly a lot of questions being answered in that display yesterday.
I'd like to think they did tune in. I have my doubts, however, but I think you're right. I was thinking that actually yesterday after we were questioning sort of Brown's leadership, for example, and things like that. He showed us up completely. Obviously, having a slot in at centre back as well, and really, really proving his worth to the club. So fair play. I'll admit when I'm wrong. And also, I think that's a very good point you make about Cormac taking the pressure off Stephen Glass. It's one I hadn't really thought about that much. It could have been a masterstroke in a sense, because it turned out everyone was talking about him for once, and it wasn't about Stephen Glass and the poor run of form.
Yeah, no, exactly. And well, if they were tuning in, hopefully they subscribed, because we had 8 new subscribers to the channel last week. So thank you all to those of you who joined. Hopefully this episode has got a little bit less issues with the sound. We do apologise for that. We didn't realise until the episode had gone live that there was some issues. Me and Calum have tweaked our settings, so hopefully this is coming through loud and clear. And if you are listening, make sure you're following wherever you are, so you get notified when each episode comes out. It's a busy week this week. We've got the review, which you'll be listening to, of the Hibs game, which we're discussing now. We're going to be joined by Robert Borthwick, who, those of you who are fans of View from the Terrace, he's joining us on Monday night to look ahead to the Hearts game, so we can get that preview out to you on Thursday. And we will, of course, have something around the Rangers game as well. All being well, we should have the watch along set up for that on Wednesday evening as well. So again, another reason to get involved with it, with the YouTube channel as well. And follow us on Twitter at RTG_podcast. We'll hopefully get the watch along streamed onto Twitter, but if we can't work that out, it will just be done exclusively on YouTube. So check out for that. So Calum, as we said, a 1-0 win in front of what was a 9,431 crowd, despite over 13,000 tickets being sold, a difference of nearly 4,000. I have to say, when the club tweeted out the attendance, I was a bit dubious because it did feel like there was a lot more than what the club said.
As did I, but perhaps the data has been proved correct there. I when they tweeted it out, I was a bit like, I'm not sure about that. But at the same time, they pretty much can't really afford to lie about that kind of thing, so they'll probably get caught out. So we'll just have to trust them. We'll have to believe them. I think it was quite a vocal crowd, the Red Shed in particular. Very impressed. The Hibs fans, I think I've seen a lot of people saying they were quite quiet, but because where I was sort of between the Red Shed and the South Stand, there was a bit of both, and it was quite good atmosphere for such a small crowd. But I think on games like that where you need the Red Shed to really get behind the team and push the team through, it definitely happened, and that's exactly why it's in place.
Yeah, I think maybe if Cormac's rant created a bit of siege mentality from the fans, and we maybe saw that. But interesting comment there about the Hibs fans, because you couldn't really hear them from the Merkland, but then the luxury you have of still being sat in Section S. Well, as always, we will look at the team news first. Callum, Joe Lewis returned in goals, replacing Gary Woods. The biggest surprise, I suppose, in the team lineup was no Jack McKenzie, out injured. The club then tweeting that he will be seeing a specialist on Monday. I've seen some rumours that he has ruptured his ankle on Twitter this evening. And we're, of course, recording this on Sunday night. So maybe by the time those of you tuning in on Monday, Tuesday, we will have heard the outcome of the injury. But let's keep our fingers crossed it is not too serious, because he has been a bright spark for our season. And, well, I did think we would miss him, especially up against Martin Boyle. But, you know, Ross McCrory coming in after his bout of illness to replace Jack McKenzie, I thought did a good job. And then Marley Watkins returned to the starting lineup, replacing Johnny Hayes, putting in a man of the match performance and actually finally showing what we've all been, shouting about how Christian Ramirez is in desperate need of a partnership. And I tell you, that partnership has got a lot of potential.
100%. When that team lineup came out, I was a bit sceptical. I was thinking, I don't know who's going to be playing that left-hand side, but we've got Calvin Ramsey, so there must be someone on the opposite side. But it was set out very, very well. And also, I think they adapted to sort of the injuries, which we'll get into as well, very, very well too, when they came along. You're spot on about Marley Watkins. I thought he applied himself brilliantly. He showed that quality that we saw when he initially came in on loan before as well. And you're right, again, this is a lot of agreeing, very positive here. But I think Ramirez definitely did benefit from him being up there. They both worked very, very hard. They both got that quality that we know they can provide. And obviously, Ramirez went on and had a lovely finishing touch too.
Yeah, he did, yeah. And the thing about Marley Watkins as well is his turn of pace still gets me for a man his size. I just don't expect him to be as rapid as he turns out to be. But I don't know about you, Callum. Certainly in the Pittodrie bar beforehand with friends, there was a lot of confidence amongst them. I was probably the only one that didn't think we would win on Saturday. Were you confident? Obviously before seeing the team lineup, certain confidence levels might have changed. But were you confident pre-match?
I think I had a little bit of sort of blind optimism. Perhaps that was maybe the best way to describe it going into it. But obviously, I've had that over the past few weeks too, and proved to be wrong. So I didn't put too much thought into that. But I think there was sort of the chance. It was there. Hibs was sort of there to be taken after a poor result against Dundee United too. And we showed up. They didn't, and that's what matters. But I think going into the game, there was a weird small bit of optimism after such a bad run of results against a decent Hibs side, let's be honest. Yeah, definitely. And I think that the first half, the way we came out and kind of took the game to Hibs, I was very, surprised and happy about, because really when you are the home team, you should be asserting your dominance from the off and not letting the opposing teams kind of stamp their own authority on games. And it may be cagey, and there wasn't many clear-cut opportunities. Ryan Hedges had a shot from distance, which was deflected, and Macy saved well. But I thought we grew into the game well, and unlike previous, we made our pressure pay and eventually taking the lead in what was a very well-worked goal. Definitely. The pressure for once did pay off, and most importantly, we got the first goal as well. I think that's the first time in since maybe this bad run of form in the league that we have taken the lead first and held on to it. First time since Wraith away that we have taken the lead in a game. Blooming heck. There we go. That's quite a stat. So there we go. And we held on to it too. I thought, we started very well, and what a well-worked goal that was. Between sort of the ball out from Brown, movement from not just Ramirez, obviously Watkins, Ojo too getting in the box there, and what a pick out from Calvin Ramsey. That boy never fails to amaze me. He just seems to be getting better and better. Yeah, it does. Yeah, brilliant team goal, and I think we saw that was Calvin Ramsey's 7th assist of the season, and Christian Ramirez now falling just one behind Martin Boyle and Liam Boyce in the goal scoring charts in the league anyway. Because his 9th goal of the season, I saw someone say, across all competitions. Certainly proving his worth, and it's just the finish as well. I kind of felt at the game, I haven't
watched it back in much detail, but it seemed to me like he kind of caught it on the half volley and just guided it into the bottom corner really well. But I know Calvin Ramsey's up against an aging Lewis Stevenson, but he had a couple of yards to make on him and got past him. And we saw the effectiveness of that Watkins-Ramirez partnership, because all the defenders followed Watkins into like the 6-yard box, and Ramirez, and he said this in his post-match press conference as well, that he then could sit off into that space for Calvin Ramsey to cut the ball back, and he finishes brilliantly. And what I really loved about that goal, from an Aberdeen point of view, not how well worked it was, is the celebrations after. Marley Watkins in front of the red shed, fists up in the air at the crowd. Hedges and Ojo straight to Ramsey to congratulate him and celebrate the hard work he put in on making the goal with a cross. And Ramirez and Brown and other teammates straight over to Stephen Glass to say, look, we are behind you. There is that, because there was that press article that came out, I think it was on Thursday or Friday night, that senior players were unhappy with Stephen Glass. And I know a certain Mr. Ferguson is being accused of being behind that, whether or not that is true or just people trying to unsettle the team. But it was just great to see there was a show of togetherness from the players there at that goal.
It certainly seems to be that it looks like Frank McAvenny, I think it was talking a load of shite, let's be honest. But no, I absolutely agree. It's great to see after, perhaps some uncertainty, the players going over and celebrating. And also you mentioned Marley Watkins geeing up the crowd. There's a few times players doing that when, the balls, after we sort of had a breakaway and got higher up the park, the ball gone out, or there's players down for injuries, players geeing up the crowd, getting them on side, which is, just what you want to see. Especially in perhaps what was maybe a cagey game at times, a bit of nerves creeping in for, obvious reasons, but it was just what you want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. However, the goal was probably tainted in a way, if you want to say that, because obviously Calvin Ramsey then picked up an injury. It kind of looked quite innocuous at the time, didn't really notice it, maybe a muscle strain or pull. Again, we're obviously recording this on Sunday, slightly worse for wear. So's our defence after the amount of knocks and injuries that were picked up from the game on Saturday. Hoping that we're going to get some positive news on that injury front for Calvin Ramsey, because certainly with the game coming up on Wednesday, missing probably our two best talents and certainly our two best defenders isn't exactly the news you would want.
Not at all, but perhaps, obviously, we want to go to Ibrox and get a good result. I would not be wholeheartedly against not taking a chance on Ramsey for that game, even though obviously he's been one of our best attacking outlets, and making sure he's okay for Hearts. Because, as I say, obviously we'd like to go to Ibrox and ruin their fun and absolutely smash them. I think it's slightly maybe unrealistic, and we can look towards that Hearts game and maybe make sure we do have the best possible 11 and not risk Calvin Ramsey, especially at such a young age where there's the risk of the burnout as well too.
Yeah, and maybe that's something we've touched on in recent episodes about Calvin Ramsey looking leggy towards the end of the games. He obviously didn't participate in the under-21 squad. He was withdrawn from that through injury, in inverted commas, I suppose, if you want to say that, because some people did maybe question if he was withdrawn just to protect him slightly. So are we seeing his injury as a result of the amount of minutes he's, has it taken its toll on young Calvin? Hopefully not. And hopefully he makes a speedy recovery and we see him, all being well, fit enough for the weekend's game against Hearts, if not on Wednesday. He was replaced though by Johnny Hayes, who I was quite critical of and have been quite critical of in recent weeks, but you can't fault him because he man-marked Martin Boyle out of the game. Michael said that Dundee United did that job effectively, kept Martin Boyle quiet. So did we. And Hibs, apart from a few instances in the second half, rarely threatened.
And not just Martin Boyle either. I suppose down that side in the first half, you got Chris Cadden as well. Obviously, we know what he's capable of too. But you're right. Johnny Hayes, we have been critical of him, and perhaps not playing to the standards we know he can play to. But he came on, he slotted in and applied himself absolutely brilliantly. Did the defensive duties as well as getting forward in support too. And I'm very impressed. Hopefully, we can see that kind of thing going forward. And on that as well, and talk of him applying himself, I thought Mr. Ferguson in the middle of the park too. Applying himself more than perhaps he has in recent weeks, and really giving it his all for the cause, which obviously is much appreciated, because we know how good he can be, and we know he's also got that dirty streak in him as well, which in games like that you do need, even though the referee's a bit card happy perhaps at times. I also want to mention Ross McCrory as well at the back. Absolutely brilliant. We don't know if he is an out-and-out defender, but he seems to be getting more and more used to it. And on the left-hand side as well, when he's obviously not naturally left-footed. So long may that continue.
Yeah, 100% echo all those sentiments. And yeah, I just wonder if there was a few players with points to prove after what's been said in the media this week. And like we said, we were questioning leadership and people if they really wanted to fight for the shirt that they were wearing. And I really do feel a lot of these players stepped up. You alluded to it earlier in the episode there about, even with the injuries further along that we got in the game. Ross McCrory even went down at one point what looked to be holding his hamstring. I thought, here we go, we're going to be done with all our subs in the first half. I felt at one stage, but no, I totally agree. And just want to bring back, before we move on to kind of the second half and the other injuries, was the link up on Ramirez and Watkins. We saw how effective it can be, but we also saw the maybe downside slight. I don't know if you recall the chance in the first half when there was a little bit of link-up play and Christian Ramirez tried to do a dink of a chip back into the box when it was definitely the better option to have a pop and goal, which was quite surprising given, his confidence should have been high and we've seen his ability to score goals. He decided to do a bit of a silky move, and yeah, Marley Watkins definitely let his feelings known on that missed opportunity. Yeah,
I think not quite on the same page there. I think Ramirez perhaps just trying to be a little bit too cute with that. But also it's good to see Marley Watkins, venting his frustrations. I think that can only make for a healthy partnership too, and that sort of communication as well. And hopefully that will obviously improve in time, and maybe they will be a little bit more on the same page.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So we said we saw players stepping up when needed. We questioned Scott Brown's leadership in the Dundee game last weekend, and he really had to step up after Declan Gallagher went off with what looks to be a hamstring injury. He was seen in crutches in the second half. I saw him making his way back to the bench in crutches, so that's never really a good sign when a player is still in crutches during the game. And again, like I said, we're really not getting the luck with the injuries seem to be all coming at once, although they do say bad things happen in three. So if that's Ramsey, McKenzie and Gallagher all in one, then hopefully that's us done for a wee while now. And another player that, I in particular have been critical of, Matty Longstaff, came on to replace Declan Gallagher, which saw Scott Brown drop into centre-back. And I thought both Scott Brown did excellently at centre-back. They're marshalling the defence and communicating with the midfield. And Matty Longstaff probably, although not hard, had his best game in an Aberdeen shirt on Saturday.
I definitely agree that it wasn't hard. I think it was an improvement though on what we have seen, which is, can only be a good thing. Hopefully now he is getting maybe up to speed with things a little bit more. We have been struggling for game time as well too, at Newcastle too as well. So hopefully getting that match sharpness up as well. Declan Gallagher, unfortunate. I think he's possibly perhaps best using a three where he can just sit in the middle and be that penalty box defender rather than being asked to ball play out from the back as part of a two when you've got the other two on either side who can perhaps do a little bit better. As we saw when he had probably his best games, maybe in his career in that spell, up to going towards the Euros for Scotland. So unfortunate that finally gets played in that role and picks up a knock. Hopefully it's not as bad as first feared, however, and we do get him back because, God, we are short for defenders, aren't we? I hope we've got a youngster from the reserves or something like that on the bench in case of emergency going into the game at Ibrox and also against Hearts at the weekend as well, because we know how much of a hammer throwing side they can be too.
Yes, absolutely. But no, it's good. It's good to see. I know it was a bit of maybe a backhanded compliment there to Matty Longstaff, but with the news coming out of Newcastle over the last few weeks, I know you're certainly happy about that news in particular. But it would pose questions about his potential future at the club, and maybe we could benefit from a player that maybe wants to put himself into the shop window and earn a move elsewhere. We start seeing the best of it now. Obviously, Gallagher was the last of the injured players to come off. We saw Ross McCrory pick up a knock, but another player that I was fully expecting to come off when he was down was Joe Lewis. I think more than proving his worth returning to the starting 11, because he certainly dominated his box, came for crosses well, which I know Michael was very critical of Hibs' opposite number in doing similar. But it was just great to see he really put his body on the line when it mattered most.
Getting clattered not just once but twice too, especially after the first one. It's not what you want to see him going down again. But I think you're right. He showed that bravery as well, and the confidence, as you say, commanding his box too. Perhaps something that we may have been critical of Joe Lewis as well in recent past. However, obviously, didn't have too much to do in terms of shot stopping. However, but that's not been the problem with Joe Lewis recently, perhaps. So it was good to see him improving in his commanding the area. And hopefully that is the confidence back for Joe Lewis. It's a clean sheet for once as well. Which we can, but not good for not only the defence, the makeshift defence, but Joe Lewis too. And getting out the clean sheet trophies as well. We're loving it.
Yeah, only the second clean sheet of Stephen Glass's managerial time at Aberdeen, the second of the season as well. And it was a hard-earned clean sheet in the sense that Hibs did start throwing, everything at us, and balls getting flashed across the box, and this bit failing to get on the end of one in particular, which you probably feel he should have done better with. But I think what, you spoke about the noise coming from the red shed, and just, the points that we're making here. I think when players put their bodies on the line, quite literally in some of these players' cases, but still carry on, they're giving their all for their shirt. They're giving their all for the club. We, as fans, want to see the passion coming across on the pitch in the right manner, of course. And we could see that on Saturday. We could see our clubs being attacked from all angles. Ourselves included at times, let's be honest, we've been critical of the club, and we are seeing that little bit of fight that's maybe been lacking in recent weeks, that little bit of desire to go out, put in that tackle that maybe we shunned in previous weeks. And that gets the crowd lifted, that gets the crowd going. And I'm just so glad for, obviously, as an Aberdeen fan point of view, but for the players, Stephen Glass, that we held on to that 1-0 lead, saw it through to full time, and just what a valuable 3 points that could be going into the next set run of fixtures, because it is a tough game coming up on Wednesday, and we would have been under all sorts of pressure had we not picked up 3 points on Saturday. I
100% agree. I think we were actually very critical of the fact players perhaps not putting their bodies on the line for the cause after the Dundee game. So it is very, very good to see the total opposite of that, and players literally getting injuries for the cause, absolutely everything. Joe Lewis getting absolutely clattered a couple of times too. But no, very, very positive. I think that kind of win was probably always the kind of one you're probably going to get after such a long barren run of results, and it's what we need. Just get 3 points on the board in any way, shape or form. But they showed that grit and determination that we've not seen, and it's very, very much welcome. Obviously, going into the game as Ibrox, that's the last game you want next. Basically, you want a chance to go and build on that, and it's a very, very tough ask. But even if we do go there and not get a result, if they do show that sort of grit and determination again, willing to put bodies on the line, it's positive. It's way more positive. The fans will be behind them far more than they have been in recent weeks. And there's a chance, and the chance going into Tynecastle as well, which we'll obviously preview with Robert coming up as well. So make sure, if you've not already, after Glenn said at the start, to subscribe so you don't miss out.
Yeah. and it's actually at Pittodrie, not Tynecastle.
I'm an idiot, sorry. I think that's because I missed the one at Tynecastle because I was isolating. And we hadn't won since then, so there we go. That's
I'm glad after my ridiculous mistake last week, you've quickly followed it up. I knew I could rely on you.
Although notice I'm not pleading to cut it out. Okay, I'm happy. I'll show my real self on you.
No, and I suppose in this second half, if you really want to be harsh, I suppose criticism was, I think it was a professional performance in the second half, if you want to call it that. We didn't create many opportunities in the second half. The only one I can really remember was where Marley Watkins broke through. Again, this is what I was meaning about his pace. He surged forward, was taken out. The referee played advantage, and Ryan Hedges flashed the ball across. And Christian Ramirez, I don't know if he was just caught waiting to, expecting that it was going to be a free kick, failing to connect. I know the referee did end up bringing it back for the free kick, but that was the only real chance that I remember us having in the second half. But given kind of maybe the circumstances, players had put in a lot of effort, makeshift defence, and we were maybe thinking, right, we need to protect what we've got and protect the inexperience behind us. I thought we did the job very well, and like I said, handled what Hibs had to throw at us very well indeed.
I think so. I think obviously we didn't create too much in the second half either, but Hibs didn't at all. But and we defended that box as if our lives depended on it. And there wasn't really too many times where he got a bit edgy. Obviously, at times he started throwing balls into the box willy-nilly, which obviously did create a little bit of nerves. But there was no real opportunities where I thought we got away with one there, other than perhaps the Nisbet one, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it is good to see. It is very, very good. I do agree with that professionalism, especially with such a makeshift defence. And again, I know I mentioned it earlier, but Scott Brown slotting in there, and you wouldn't have thought he wasn't a centre-back, in all fairness.
Well, it's funny, we question whether Ross McCrory is a centre-back or not. I'm sure the same question could be posed to Scott Brown, but both handled their roles in defence very well. And David Bates, again, another player we've been very critical of in recent weeks. Very well done to him on Saturday. Obviously, an elbow in his face in the 90th minute as well for his troubles, which saw Darren McGregor sent off. But look, at the end of the day, I think you could sense the relief and as well as jubilation at full time when that whistle went. The signal Aberdeen had won 1-0, moving us up to 8th in the table ahead of the trip to Ibrox. Yes. And also sealing a second clean sheet of the season. I just wonder, will the same media pressure start rising on Jack Ross as Stephen Glass has found him on now after Hibs slumped a third straight defeat? It'll be interesting to see what happens as they obviously face Celtic next before a trip to Dingwall. So interesting times to see what pressure Jack Ross faces after all the pressure Stephen Glass faced when he went on a poor run of form. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. But as I said, it's a trip to Ibrox for Aberdeen, and we've touched on this already, Callum. We have our own defensive worries to worries that we've got ahead of this fixture. Worst case scenario, missing both our fullbacks, no Declan Gallagher. Do you start the same defence that finished the game on Saturday?
I'm not sure about starting Scott Brown in centre half. I think he played very, very well there, but I think we might miss him in the Park against Ibrox, against Rangers. We know what they're capable of. I think we'll probably revert back to... Actually, I don't know what we're going to do. It's Jack Kerr. What's he up to? Is he going to come in? Goodness me,
I think he was watching.
Few options.
I think he was watching the game in a box on Saturday. But the one thing, as somebody mentioned to me about Scott Brown potentially playing centre back on Wednesday, how box office will him up against Alfredo Morelos potentially be? I mean, it could be box office, but it could also be absolutely disastrous if it doesn't work out in our favour. But that is a battle that would definitely be lively for sure. And I suppose you're then looking at Lewis Ferguson to step up and take that midfield leadership role alongside Ojo, and I guess I assume Longstaff might come in to fill that void left by Scott Brown. And these are the sort of games that I'm looking at the players that haven't so far maybe stepped up or impressed so far this season consistently, this is the stage as Aberdeen fans where if you can go and impress, you can go and make your name for yourselves, you'll be remembered for a long, long time.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the sort of time we'll see their character. Obviously, we saw that grit and determination against Hibs. It would be lovely to go and see it again at Ibrox, and then we'll see. Then that's a bit of progress we'll maybe see after such a bad string of results. Very interesting. You mentioned the Brown and Morelos thing. It's a shame that's not going to be on TV if that happens. Perhaps it might sort of hark back to the battles Morelos used to have with Mr. Scott McKenna, which were always very, very entertaining. Yeah,
absolutely. But my worry about the game with not having the fullbacks in Mackenzie and Ramsey and, you know, the pace that they both possess is how we fare with Hadji and Aribo's pace, who have both been in fine form for Rangers this season. Kemar Roof scoring again today. He's in good form. Just the pace that Rangers possess on the wings. I don't know if Ryan Kent is going to be fit enough for the game. It might come too soon, which is, you know, potentially a blessing in disguise for us. But certainly from a defensive point of view, look, I know, you know, we can't expect miracles given that's only our second clean sheet of the season, but we know how poor we can be defensively. That, for me, is my biggest worry. I just wonder, Stephen Glass isn't a man that always wants to change from the philosophy. I know it's a philosophy that we've got this season to be more expansive in play. I know a lot of you disagree if this philosophy is actually happening, but it is to play an attacking brand of football. Should we bin it off for one game and try and shithouse a result as best we can on Wednesday?
I don't think I'd have any qualms with that. I think especially given the fact we rely on players like Calvin Ramsey to play this open, expansive attacking football. He's probably one of our biggest threats going forward, despite being a right back. If he's missing, I think I would forgive him for perhaps, as you say, try to shithouse a result. Also interesting, you mentioned Ryan Kent perhaps back. There is also a rumour of the other Rangers, Ryan, perhaps being back fit just in time for this game, which is bloody typical, isn't it?
Just fine for King Funzo Ojo to put his studs through and that'd be fine.
That would be great. Or that, Matty Longstaff, you could really endear yourself to the fans.
Yeah, that or the other former Aberdeen player that finds himself at Castle Grayskull now, that would also be fine if he found himself back on warming the bench or the injury table. That would be most welcome.
I don't even want to say his first name. I've said the other ones because I'm a little bit over it, kind of a little bit now since it's been about 4 years, but that one's still fresh in the memory.
Yeah, and still very, very raw. But I suppose from an Aberdeen point of view, we're maybe looking towards slightly negative connotations for this game with the defensive issues and the form that some of the Rangers players find themselves in. Maybe we can take confidence from the fact that this will be Rangers' fourth game in 10 days. I was going to say they had a away game after the European game, but it was only in Paisley, so it's not exactly an exerting trip for them. But they have conceded in 3 of their last 4 league games and only kept 1 clean sheet in their last 4 home games. So, and that was against a Livingston side who were struggling at the time. So maybe there is confidence that we can take from that. There should be opportunities for us to get a goal. We do like to create plenty of opportunities. We're just going to need to make sure, and it's always the case when you go to Ibrox Parkhead, we need to be clinical. Let's not worry about this fancy stuff. If there's an opportunity to shoot. Don't try a fancy flick in behind somebody. Don't try the layoff. Just go for it. Look at Alan McGregor, flapped at the corner, Hart's got a vital point. So there's opportunities can arise. Let's make sure we don't come away regretting not taking them.
I 100% agree. I think plus obviously this Rangers side still on good form. They're not as frightening as they were last season. They're not on the same sort of form.
I still maintain that it's because the crowd is there, because of how quickly that crowd can turn on their players. And it's maybe something that we could play into our hands if we can frustrate frustrate Rangers for a large period. Just don't concede early.
I suppose, if you get to sort of half an hour at Ibrox, you're in with a decent chance. If you get to that still with a clean sheet intact, and then especially half time too, because the fans will turn, as you see. I'm sure happens at Pittodrie too at times, but it is something you can use to your advantage. But the task is getting to that sort of half an hour, half time mark with the clean sheet intact. But they're not the same team as they were last season. They're not quite hitting that same sort of form. They're not blowing away teams every week. Obviously, they're getting the wins. You'd expect that with the squad they have, but they're not going out and smashing teams. Yeah. There's going to be chances, as you said. We will have a couple, but we do need to take them. We do need to be clinical. We need that sort of finishing touch that Ramirez had in one of the very few chances he got, I suppose. If he can do that again in this game, I'll be a very, very happy man. But the least I ask, if we don't go there and get a result, is just let's not embarrass ourselves. Yeah, let's show the same grit and determination we saw against Hibs. Put in the effort, fight for the shirt, put your bodies on the line, and if we don't get a result, then it's still positive going into the game against Hearts at Pittodrie.
When you were saying there, I just have the vision of that Seattle fan. Fight and win! I just need to get you shouting that as the team come out the dressing room at Ibrox.
Or Christian Ramirez could do it, similar accent. Why not?
Okay, cool. Well, we're just going to go down that just because he's American. To just walk around the away dressing room shouting at everybody.
That'll really get the players up for it. Yeah, I think so.
Definitely. Well, as always, we don't have an opposition fan on for the preview because, well, as much as Colin adds, we don't think that the blue half of Glasgow will add much to the views and listens of this show, let's be honest. But we'll try and do what we did against Hibs, Calum, and come up with a combined 11 to round off the show tonight. So I think it's going to be fair to say that Joe Lewis will retain his place in goals on Wednesday night.
Yeah, 100% I would agree with that. Thank God he's okay going into that game. Going with Gary Woods would not be fun. But this is going to be a struggle when we get into that back four, I tell you. More back three. Who have we got? I think we've got a back one officially. David Bates basically is the only real fit defender. Yeah,
Johnny Hayes, I suppose. Well, let's think, realistically, Hayes at left back, McCrory left centre back, and Bates right centre back, and then I can't even remember who finished the game at right back.
Right. Ojo, I think, was at wing back. And also, actually, fair play, we've not mentioned it yet. Funso Ojo started at left wing back, finished the game at right wing back. Great performance. So I'd be quite happy to see him keep his place there if Ramsey's not fit. And the more I think about it, I know I was a bit sceptical about it before, but I think maybe Brown at centre back's not a terrible idea.
And the reason why I don't think it's a terrible idea is because we saw in the Old Firm games last season how much, and it seemed to be more obvious that Brown's legs had gone. He didn't assert himself in the midfield as we've seen prior. So maybe just getting his experience at the back to get those tactical fouls or break up the play if Rangers are on a break. He knows what he's doing. Okay, maybe John Beaton, who's going to be the ref on Wednesday, will have one eye on that and get his cards out early. But maybe just that tactical know-how in our defence might benefit us. So if Brown is going to drop into what would be, I suppose, a defensive five with three at the back and the two wing backs, what would your midfield be? Would it be, are we pretty much just going to name the team that nearly finished the game on Saturday? Ferguson, Longstaff in the middle there?
I think so. I think Longstaff probably showed just about enough to keep his place. Wouldn't be against Dylan McGeoch necessarily, perhaps coming in. Either we know he's capable of, and maybe in a game like this, his sort of calming influence might not be a bad shout in place of Longstaff, maybe.
Yeah, just a shame he's not had a lot of recent run of games. Not sure why he's not found himself in favour this season, whether it's due to injuries or form, maybe something happening in training that is not impressing the manager yet. But no, I wouldn't be against seeing him come in if it wasn't going to be Longstaff. And then I think we have to go with that front three of Watkins, Ramirez and Hedges. That's got to be probably your first three names there to hopefully cause the Rangers backline some problems.
I think so. And then you've still got the options of Samuels and also Jet, who, sometimes his effort perhaps questionable, but he is capable of producing that moments of magic. We do know that.
Or Niall McGinn.
That's true. Yeah, the fastest man in the West, Niall McGinn. Let's not forget him. So there is options on the bench too. Sorry, oh god.
Fastest man unless he's speaking to Steve from the DST, who's 49, 2 dodgy knees, and he's still faster than him.
I mean, it's a bold claim, but I can't. I guess I can't dispute it yet.
Yeah, no, it's certainly an entertainment part that we would like to see, and hopefully this has brought some entertainment to you wherever you may be tuning in. And want to again thank you for your continued support. Thank you for listening, watching, wherever it may be. And we will be back on Wednesday with that watch along against Rangers. It will be myself. Callum is unfortunately not going to be joining me as he is at the Snuts, enjoying himself there, which maybe will prove to be the better option. We'll remain to see. But thank you again for tuning in.
Thank you very much.